Good morning, guys. It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2020. Welcome to today's live training. I'm going to get this shared out to the community. Now, if you're new to me, I'm Marshall Burtcher, and I help codependents and survivors of narcissistic abuse rediscover their value, voice, and vision and reclaim their happiness through their value, voice, and vision so they can develop healthy, happy relationships, purpose and career, joy. Basically, get you back happy in your health, wealth, and well-being. That's what I do. And if you want a Facebook community that's got your back, where you get training and support and tools and inspiration, join the community. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. So let me get this shared out to the community, or they're going to be like, hey, what are you doing? Why not us? What about me? Very valid question there. Okay. So today we're going to talk about an interesting little concept I call the empathy fantasy. This could be interesting because it might rile some people up. Apparently that's my thing lately. All right. Consent and empathy. That's really what this is about. So when I was growing up, I had the very understandable yet naive fantasy that people should care about how I feel. I especially had that about things that you would naturally expect to care about you, people that you would think would care about you, like parents, right? Sometimes friends, people that you like, you would expect them to care about you. Things like that. This, guys, it's a fantasy, right? Now, I put some nuance into this. It is normal and natural to expect that your parents, your siblings, your friends would care about you. That's an understandable need and desire. But when we buy into the idea that they must care about us, they should care about us, we're buying into a fantasy that compels us to stay in relationships with people who don't actually give a shit. And we can know they don't give a shit based on the patterns of behaviors they exhibit. It's really, really important. The truth is revealed by persistent patterns of behavior. Okay? So this is where I base everything off of, is this persistence of patterns of behavior. Now when we come to empathy, because we have this fantasy that people should care about us. Mom should care about me. Stepmom should care about me. Dad should care about me. Well, yeah, in an ideal world, they would care about you, and they would demonstrate that through their behaviors. But that doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes we come into the world with parents that don't care. We come into the world with parents that want you to parent them. It's called parentification. Guys, when we're willing to accept that we can't compel empathy, but empathy is given by consent, we suddenly discover one of the most fundamental boundaries we can have to keep ourselves healthy and out of a codependent fantasy, out of codependent relationships, and out of that fond cycle of love bombing, being devalued, and being discarded through the consumer supply relationship. And that is that people don't often care about how we feel. And when we can identify that, then we can identify where they belong in our lives. This is one of the most difficult and heart-wrenching realizations I came to, but it was also the most empowering. Because when I realized that empathy required consent, then suddenly I became emotionally boundaried, and they began to make a lot more sense to me. Because I had a bad habit of getting out there and chasing people, trying to get people to like me, to love me, to care about me, especially my parents. And I did that through becoming the golden child, through becoming a perfectionist, by becoming what I thought they wanted, so that I could get their love and through the form of approval at that point in time. And this really screwed life up. I ended up being in relationships I didn't want to be in. I ended up hurting people that didn't deserve. Well, nobody deserves to be hurt, but I ended up hurting people that they were sincerely interested and they cared about me. But because I'm chasing love, I'm chasing empathy, I couldn't see it. And that got me into this habit of seeking love from people who didn't want to give it and didn't have it to give. Okay? This is one of the big codependent fantasies. If I can get my parents to love me, then I'm finally worthy of love. It comes from this assumption that for me to be lovable, I must be loved, which is frankly bullshit. You're lovable. Just because they don't love you does not mean you're unlovable. It means that they don't consent to that, or they don't choose it, or fundamentally, they don't do it. And that's what matters. Why they don't do it really isn't that important. That can be really hard to hear, and I know that can land with some really punchy stuff, but it's important to understand that it's done on consent. People do this or they don't do this, and that is what that matters, because codependency has this fantasy of, if I can understand why they do what they do, I can change what they do, and that is a falsity. That's one of the huge baits we get ourselves with. It's like, okay, if I can understand it, I can change it. You can't change it. Your understanding isn't going to make it any better. Accepting is what's going to bring you into freedom. And that's what understanding consent did for me. See, consent is this idea that a person is fully autonomous. So their love, their empathy, their time, their attention, their affection, their hurt, their anger, whatever it might be, their property emotionally, physically, spiritually, energetically, is theirs, period. Nobody is entitled to it. In my book, the only people that have any kind of entitlement to anything are children. Children are entitled to something from their parents because the child is in a genuinely helpless and powerless position until they gain the capability to meet their own needs. But outside of that, if we're dealing with what I call grown-ass adults, us, then I don't have any entitlement to another adult. I don't have entitlement to their empathy. I don't have entitlement to their love. Even if they're my spouse, my girlfriend, my friend, my child, my parent, I don't have entitlement to that, because that violates consent. Okay? What I can do, and this is where things get really powerful for us, especially if we're exiting codependent dynamics, is I can meet and build connection with people who want to contribute that way, who want to give their empathy and their love, who like who I am and want to be involved with me, and whom I like them and want to contribute my love to them. Consent leads to connection, right? Consent leads to honesty. It leads to clarity. It makes relationships direct, clear, and simple. It takes away a lot of this blurred line and fuzziness, because when we understand that love is something that we're being given because the person wants to give it. When they're contributing empathy and understanding to us, we're learning that this person is safe for us, that this person is a healthy addition to our life. It isn't about, I need them to love me, or they need to change and love me. No, they don't. They don't. What needs to happen is I need to accept that they don't actually like me, or they don't actually care about how I feel. And if I can accept that, then I can make a more honest decision about who I bring into my life, who I allow to be there. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments what you think about this, because this might rile up a few people, because it pushes this interesting taboo about empathy and love. It forces us to face the fact that people don't. And if we can really acknowledge that they don't, then we can acknowledge that they don't belong in our lives, unless that's what we want. If we if we want that experience, and then they fit really well with what we're looking for. Guys, it's really fundamentally important to understand that adult peer-related relationships should be based on consent, should be based on an honesty. So when we get to know somebody, we want to see what they do, rather than trying to squish that person into the fantasy we have, or to what and how we want what we want. We should get to see what they are. And that requires us to acknowledge this fundamental of consent and the genuine autonomy and personal individuality of the other person. That way, we know how does it feel when you're with someone and they genuinely empathize? You know that they genuinely care. How's that feel for you? Because for me, I feel safe, I feel seen, I feel valued, I feel sheltered emotionally, right? I can build a deeper connection there. But if I have a fantasy that this person should care, I'm going to miss the fact that they do, or I'm going to miss the fact that they don't. And both of those are really important. Because if I'm out for a healthy, vital, reciprocal, long-lasting relationship, I need to know what that is. And for me to know what that is, I have to be sober about it, which means I've got to acknowledge consent and then accept what's showing up. Okay? Now again, patterns of behavior. I don't care if someone says they're sorry. Words are shit. If someone says they're sorry and then they correct their behavior and show up differently, now I'm on board. Now I'm interested. Now I can build more trust and connection. But if they just say sorry and then they go and do it again, I don't think you're so sorry. I think you might be lying to yourself or to me. That's, I know, pretty strong to say, but that's what it is. Why can't we just say what it is, right? If you're not doing what you say you're doing, then you're lying to yourself and to me. It may not be deliberate, but it doesn't have integrity, and if you don't take accountability for it and change your behavior, I can't trust you. You know, if you're to the anatomy of trust training for more on trust, but you're welcome. Armina, you are welcome. So yeah, this is really what it's about. We've got to get sober. We got to get out of these fantasies that people should care about us and that people should love us. And we should get in contact with the reality of, do they? And do they through their pattern of behavior? Do they appreciate us? Do they respect us? Okay? Do we respect them? Do we like them? The other thing with this is when we get into consent and empathy, we become emotionally boundaried, which means I get to say yes and no to where my empathy goes. I get to boundary that empathy and say, yeah, I totally get that you're in pain, but I can't reach into that hole and pull you out. You're going to have to pull yourself out. That keeps me out of becoming a rescuer and a fixer, and it keeps me in a healthy position with myself. Because there's empathy burnout, guys. We're not here to rescue people. Human beings have a journey, and that journey is littered with consequences, and those consequences are their teachers. Let them have their consequence. Let them learn their lesson or not. That is theirs to do. We have no business in controlling that. That violates consent. That violates autonomy. So we stay out of that. We get to see what people do, and then we can have more honest relationships with them. Because now we know where they land and what kind of boundary we ought to have with that person. So I know this can be a little difficult to hear, but it's fundamental. If you're going to really heal in your life and return to your value, voice, and vision, return to the brilliance that you truly be, this is one of the fundamentals you have to confront and wrestle with and accept and then apply to your life. Because that's where you get honesty. Your value, your voice, and your vision are a result of this boundaried experience and understanding that consent. Okay? Because when you have boundaries, you know you from another person, and you can discern your value, your innate value, this intrinsic joy that you be, and then you can hear your voice, your vision, and follow it. That's how we get out of codependency. This is how we stay out of it. We move on with our lives with this. And this is what I teach in the happiness strategy. A 13-week training that takes you through healing your trauma, retrieving and integrating your innate value, tuning into and listening to your true voice, and then receiving and following your genuine vision for your happiness. That's how I heal codependency. So, if you're interested in that, I have seats open for the happiness strategy. You need to take the workshop. It's linked above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and then you can jump into it too and change your life. And really, once you know your value, voice, and vision, you can have the relationships you want, the career, business, or job you want. Fundamentally, you're going to be a lot more happier because you're not out there chasing love. You're not out there chasing consent or empathy, rather, your boundary, you're in your consent, you're choosing who you're going to invest your time and energy in, and you're allowing yourself to grow and be you, because you're brilliant and you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. So there you go. There you go, guys, for today's training. I appreciate you showing up. And remember that we do this every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so we have another training tomorrow. And that fundamentally, guys, really, you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. When you start to really tune into that, you'll be able to see the people who do love you, who want to know you, and who keep you in their lives. And I talk in possession like an object, but they want you there. They enjoy your presence. You're worth that. Be that to yourself, and then be that to others, and you'll have that returned back to you. Because you'll be able to see it in others. You'll be able to choose people who actually do that. Okay, there you go, guys. I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.